Yay, and we are live right now
I
with
see
Michael
it. Perfect.
Sengstack. Am I saying your name right? Sengstack.
You got
Sengstack?
it perfect.
Oh, okay. It's easier to
Perfect.
say than it looks.
Right. This is also very true. It's also, if you say it fast enough, it doesn't
Sengstack.
matter. It's kind
Oh,
of
the
like,
right.
yeah.
You would not imagine how many people misspell my last name.
I will confess that I often have to look back and make sure that I'm doing it correctly when I type your name. I'm like, E-R-U-R, E-R-U-R. Got it. Okay,
Yeah,
E-R.
and I never would have thought that was going to happen. Yeah, my maiden name was Witten, like my mom,
Yep.
W-H-I-T-T. That I can understand. I got Whitney with Whitley. I got all kind of stuff, but yeah, Wilbur. I thought, hey, how can you mess that?
Simple, simple. There's always a way. Right.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm so excited to learn more about you. I saw now the big question here. I was looking you up on doing my due diligence on
Yes.
LinkedIn. I couldn't tell for sure. How many years do you have with your main gig is Avon, of
As,
course,
yep.
Director
So
of Events and Recognition. And how many years do you have in?
So I am in my 21st year. So I had my 20th anniversary in the spring, and there's a little subplot story there which we may dive into, because I call it I was with Avon for 5 years, and then I went on what I call my maternity leave, which
I
was
know where you went.
I
I know
tried
where you
something
went.
else, yes, and came back.
Yes.
So
And I
about
think that was
21 years.
awesome. But you were a fashion buyer for Lillian Vernon.
I was.
That's
I
awesome.
I was. And
Yes.
I have to say, Lillian Vernon herself. So I had the privilege of working with her on a
Wow.
few occasions. She had sold the company at that point, but was still involved
Mhm.
creatively. And she was such a dynamo, and one of those, like, if somebody's got a golden gut, it is Lillian Vernon. I mean, she was so inspiring and so interesting to work with, and I learned a lot from her in the short period of time that I was there, and I kinda wished I'd had more of her. It probably, would have been a different experience, but I was very happy to come back to Avon for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole different I don't know if I've worked at some other corporations, but Avon has a culture that's hard to match, I think. Don't you think?
Yeah, and that was, in all honesty, that was what brought me back. Was, I kind of, as I mean, I was there for 6 months, and as I was working and, introducing new products and things were working, I kept thinking, "Well, this is great, like, the product is doing well," but I wasn't hearing the stories of representatives now earning more money because they were selling
Oh,
the product. It was sort of like, the more money I made, the more money the company was making, but not the people. And I sort of missed that whole conversation
the whole
of
feedback.
what that commission and that sale meant to a representative. And that's what brought me back, to be honest. Yeah,
Well, there you probably didn't even deal with any end users. It was just,
exactly.
oh, see that,
Yeah.
yeah, that would be a little less
Yeah.
enthusiastic.
Yeah, it felt much more corporate and less like family, so, yeah, that was hard.
So you know what I had is to ask you, I didn't know it was 20. I thought maybe it was more than that. And as you know, it's 35 on the books, but I'm actually since 81 because I was
Wow.
obviously a wee child when I signed up, obviously.
Absolutely. Mhm.
But yeah, I didn't have a break in service. I sold on Guam and I didn't know you could transfer. So
Oh,
when I signed up over there, transferred to Mississippi, South Carolina, and then New Hampshire. So what's on the books is from New Hampshire forward. But
good
I
to
actually
know.
signed up right away. I just didn't know you could transfer. But back then it
Interesting.
was different. It was so Pasadena, Guam was out of the Pasadena branch.
Yep.
Yeah. And it was a whole different world over there, by the way. I didn't know. When I came back, I was so excited. They had like meetings and they had like trips. And
You
when
can
you won
see
something, you
people.
actually got it because I won. I shouldn't say when I earned. a desk and something, but they wouldn't send
Okay.
it to me because I was on.
Oh,
So here you actually get it. And
you got to do it. Yeah,
yeah,
it does feel, I sympathize with Shannon Lucero, our account executive for California and the islands, and it's you're not having that contact, and I think that's so much about what makes this business interesting and so different than any other is building that connection and being with other people.
right. And for the leaders that are listening to this, by the way, that are saying they wish they had meetings, have them. No one's saying you can't have them
Yep.
yourself. Yeah, don't rely on the company to do stuff. It's up to us to do it if we want it, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of leadership
Yeah.
is inspiring, motivating, and building that sense of community, whether it's as a team or as a greater, Avon community on its own. It's important.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, we better talk about the I want to say elephant in the room, but I was the elephant not in the room at the convention. Oh, I am so sorry.
Okay, first of all, you have no need to apologize, and I should apologize to you because I was like, I think I got off stage and I said to Steve, I'm like, "I think I really picked on Lisa Wilber too much," but
Oh
I
no, you did.
okay, good. I'm like, I feel like she'll take it in the spirit of which it was intended, and we wanted to have a
Oh,
little fun,
well,
so
there's two sides to this. I should have waited. You guys were running late, and I should have waited. But in my defense, and you probably would have preferred it if you'd seen me that night. But I spent all day at the pool, um, throwing some back. I shouldn't say that. That's horrible. So
you were
I'm not
hydrating. You were
right. Yeah,
hydrating.
I was hydrating with adult beverages. So I'm not. I'm not really sure going on stage would have been the best
The best
option
idea.
at right
Okay.
at that moment. So it actually worked out in your favor.
So you were self-regulating and monitoring. I like
Yes.
it. Totally
Yes.
makes sense. That totally makes
Yes,
sense.
yes. So, but I did miss my moment, so that was upsetting. But
That's
I was
right.
happy you mentioned the party because I wish you'd been able to come up. I should have invited you
It
sooner ahead.
was spectacular. I mean, it's funny. So I'll actually tell a quick little story about this whole concierge program. And for anybody who's listening who's not familiar, Diamond Club achievers earned in 2020 an allowance to spend this year to support their team based on their sales level, as long as it was over $1 million. And that whole concept started when we were in Cabo in would that have been 2018, 2019? It was 2019. And we kept having conversations and I remember actually talking to Joanna Niederheiser and she was saying, it's so fun what Avon does. And wouldn't it be great if leaders could do this for their teams and sort of create this energy? And the next day we were having breakfast as a team and thought, well, what if we did something where you could earn this allowance and sort of create your own team celebration incentive, whatever? And you executed in the exact way that we sort of envisioned it in the beginning,
Oh,
which was to do
yay!
something like your team best, right? So what motivates them, what inspires them, and you really did it in a way that celebrated not just your team, but customers and just the whole business, right? I mean, it was really like the New Hampshire State Fair at Lisa Wilbur's. Yeah.
Well, I was just trying to think of the way that I could, I don't want to say touch or interact with the most team members. So we tried to do a live. I did a lot of posting about it. I let
Yep.
anybody buy tickets for the drawing that we did. So I mean, I wanted to get as many people as possible because I got a pretty big team, and
Yep.
that was the hard part. I wasn't sure what to do to include the most number of people. But then I thought about we did this before. I don't know if you know that part. when Randy Smith was doing the Ride of Life around the country.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We were a stop for him, and it just so happened, I wonder if you know this part. So they had some contest back then where if you won the contest, it was for seniors, I think, you got
Okay.
to name where the Northeast Rally was going to be for fourth quarter. And I won it, except when they called me, they said, where do you want it to be? And I said, my backyard. And
See?
they called me back like 2 days later and said, would you consider taking money instead? And I said yes, because I thought they'd probably say that. I'm like,
Okay.
yes. So they sent me money, and that's what I used for Randy's party. And we had the big, I combined those two things, and we had the pig roast, and it was all paid for that way.
I think it's great.
So, but
And
it was fun.
yeah, and this, in all honesty, was a way to sort of enhance what you're already doing with your team. And, so I loved that you took something that you knew worked and
Right.
sort of
I had all
reinvented
the
it for
vendors in
this.
there. Yeah, I liked
Yeah.
that part. I had the vendors, so when I dealt with the concierge, I could give her the list, and I knew. It's so funny though, because they would all come to me and go, "Why is this lady calling?" And I'm like, "Well, it's still
Yeah.
us." But it
Some
was fun.
people know. Yeah.
Yeah, we added the aerial, the drone guy. Last
Perfect.
time I had a apple picker truck come last
Ooh.
time because they didn't have drones. This was a few years back.
But yeah,
Or
I was
not
gonna
drones
say.
weren't as plentiful, I should say.
Yeah.
So we added a few things, but it was fabulous. I thought we did had quite a crowd. I wanted to tell you, you're buddies with Bibbs. Did you know
Yes.
that whole story on Randy's when Randy was here? We call Bib the blind guy, and we mean that in a loving way, of course.
I
But
absolutely.
right. So he was here, Randy was here, and Bibbs going on and on. He said, "Man, what I wouldn't give to ride on that motorcycle." And I said, "Oh, Randy, I said, Bib, you're in luck. Randy's giving rides." And what I didn't realize is Randy was only giving rides to girls. There's a rule in the man village that two men can ride together on a motorcycle.
Who knew?
But what was funny is the two of them stood there, and I said, doesn't he like get a pass because he's like the blind guy? And the
Right.
two of them didn't look at each other or anything. They looked right at me, hesitated, and simultaneously went, no.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, the whole man village thing is a mind-blowing experience to me.
So they were honoring the boy code, I guess we would call
Yeah,
it. Okay.
Randy and Bib are both card-holding members
Got
of
it.
the man
Perfect.
village. Yeah.
Perfect.
Anyway, you know what else we have? We have something else in common, actually. This is a
Share.
weird thing. You and I both saw Bette Midler and Hello Dolly on Broadway.
So good.
I actually cried. Don't
Did
tell
you
anyone.
really?
I actually did. When she came at the top of the stairs in the red dress in that part of the performance,
Yep.
don't tell anybody though. I'm not
No,
crying.
you know what? It's such, to me, that's one of those shows that and that scene in particular, that sort of, moment in the show is completely a kind of revelation of a person and singing their song, and just kind of, that is an arrival to beat all arrivals, and it can't help but give you chills. I actually, interestingly related, so this was it would have been in 1999. It was right before I guess, well, either 1999 or 2000. I think it might have been 2000. I went to see Carol Channing in Hello Dolly when she was doing
Whoa.
a revival at the Lunt-Fontanne Theater. And it was one of the last shows
Wow.
that I saw with my mother before she passed away. Both of my parents came in to see it. And it was so fun because at the end of the Dolly number, Carol Channing, there was a standing ovation, of course, because, good old Carol Channing is still hoofing it.
Yeah.
And I think she was in her 70s at the time. And she kind of just turned around and looked at everybody. And then she said, "Should we do it again?" and she went back up the stairs, and the band started
Oh,
over again, and they
oh,
repeated
that's
the
awesome.
entire number, and everybody was, like, weeping
Oh,
and
wow.
cheering, and it was amazing.
Oh,
It was amazing.
you know what? Seeing Bette Midler, I said, if I can't see Carol Channing, I want to see Bette Midler.
Yeah,
That's how it was, because she's the one that made that role so famous, Carol
so
Channing.
famous. Yeah,
Yeah,
but Bette, I
wow,
gotta say, Bette did
she
it
was good.
proud. I loved, and I heard she did this a few times in different performances, where during one of the numbers, she, like, grabs onto the curtain and she's, like, panting because she's trying to keep
Oh,
up. Yeah,
yeah.
she did that when I was there, and she's just like, you know, but she acts it like, yeah, had both the acting and the singing chops. It was great.
We saw it when it was David Hyde Pierce,
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
he
yeah.
was good. Did you see him too?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
he was good. He was good.
He's incredible on stage. I mean, that's one thing. For those of you who don't know, I moved to Savannah in April, which we'll probably talk about a little bit, but I think going to the theater and that portion of New York is the thing that I will miss the most, because you get to see amazing things and you can do it spontaneously. I
Oh,
saw Lauren Bacall on stage in Waiting in the Wings in the early 90s.
wow,
I saw Glenn Close in the original Sunset Boulevard. I got to
wow.
see, um, um, I actually saw Liza Minnelli, Raquel Welch, and Julie Andrews all in Victor Victoria. It was one where I was like, I'm just going to see everybody who leads in this. It was a lot of fun.
And bringing this back to home here, get the first Broadway show I ever went to, Avon paid for. It was Guys and Dolls, and it was, I don't know if you
Nathan
remember this,
Lane?
Jim. I don't know if it was him, because I
Okay.
was so off the mountain. I was, you know what
Like,
I mean?
wow.
Right, yeah, that's probably not the first time I've been in New York, but pretty darn close. And it
That's
was way back. Jim Preston had done a incentive, and the incentive was for advertising, and they sent the little booklet out, a pink booklet for everybody
uh-huh.
that got their idea chosen. And my idea was to letter your car. Which I still do, by the way.
See?
Yeah,
Still
yeah.
working.
It was funny because at the time, I got some grief from the local employee that said I couldn't do it. But then once I won the contest,
Then you were
uh,
kind of okay,
yeah,
right?
but yeah, that's a learning curve though for everybody listening. To go from hayseed out in the country. And to say that I'm a redneck is understating the problem. But anyway, to all of a sudden go into a meeting in New York is a culture shock. We went to see Guys and Dolls. We had a luncheon with Jim Preston up in the executive offices
Yeah.
there, and
Gorgeous.
yeah. Now, knowing what I know now, I probably would have said less.
Well,
you know,
but I will say, you wouldn't have been there if you didn't earn it and deserve it and have something to say that Jim wanted to hear, right? And so I feel like I would never regret, I think it's a hard thing to have regrets. And so listen, you probably
Oh,
said just
I
the right
don't
amount.
necessarily regret it, but
Yeah.
I was a little over the top. I think I used to wear these big giant glasses, like
Mhm.
sunglasses, playing around, and I had all my buttons on, and I was just obnoxiously loud about everything. Right.
You were talking about advertising. You had a look, you
Right.
were advertising your business and yourself. Yeah.
But that's the first taste of the trips that I got, and it was so good. I mean, I wanted to do everything after that, of course.
Nice.
So
Nice.
what? No, you've got to go on most, have you not, during your 20? Or
It's
not really?
funny. It's in reality, I have really started going on, so like conventions and things started pretty early in my career. So for anybody who doesn't know, I started out in design for apparel and accessories. And so I, got involved with convention and the visual merchandising and all of that product experience stuff pretty early in my career. But for incentive trips and reward trips and things like that, that was always sort of part of the sales organization and that, special group with Joe Balone and his whole team. And at one point, not that long ago, maybe less than 5 years ago or so.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. Hey,
welcome to my life. Right?
It's family, exactly. I think I got invited to a what the time was leadership kickoff to do some presentations, etc. And then I was kind of like, well, this is really interesting, but it's really only been since about 2019 that I've been on some of the incentive trips and things like that. So
you missed a whole bunch of good ones.
I know, I did. I remember hearing about them and thinking, oh my God, how cool, and where are they going? And yeah, so now it's kind of a nice moment.
40. I think I've gone on like 40.
Amazing.
I don't know, when they say how many have gone and they have you stand up, I don't have any idea.
Right, just, pick a number in your head and get up.
But, well, I don't know which ones they're counting, because sometimes they don't count ones I think that should count.
That's a good point.
So,
that's a good point.
So, do you hear, keep in touch with Joe Balone? No. Didn't know him that
interestingly, when Lorianne came in as CEO, I guess was that 2 years ago or so, she and I had a conversation where we were talking about Joe, and as she was kind of getting to know how the organization worked, et cetera. And I asked if she could bring him in and we could talk a little bit about building a recognition program and kind of rethinking some of the things. So I did get to see him a bit with Lorianne. And I mean, what an absolute teddy bear. I mean, like, the nicest guy, couldn't be, more supportive or engaged in representative success and even just the company's success, even though, he's not part of the organization anymore. I think, we very much look to his spirit and sort of the things that he laid out to build success for sure.
You got to have him give you some pointers on the whole name calling thing, because that was like the highlight of my year when he'd go, and from the state of New Hampshire, the Evergreen Division, it's Lisa Wilber.
Oh, totally.
Oh my God, I always loved that.
That voice. I mean, that was a radio announcer, like Mike Connaughton had that same kind of voice.
Oh,
yeah, for sure.
Hey, do you remember a guy way back? I don't know, because you're 20 years. This was, but he was a legend at corporate and on the trips. Jewelry Joe. It wasn't Joe Balone. Oh, you do? Okay. So now somebody asked me what his deal was. Did he have jewelry stuffed in his pockets, or was he wearing it, or what did he do?
So Jewelry Joe was the vice president of fashion and home when I was hired. And so I interviewed with him and went to a first kind of like planning session with him. And he used to wear a vest that was covered in pins and necklaces and earrings, and they would kind of update it and add all the new season stuff for him. But it was outside. He would like turncoat it and show the inside and things like that. But I mean, a perfect example of have a story, be a little disruptive, and people paid attention. And you know what? The jewelry business was phenomenal when he was part of that. And Sally Haig-Alex is part of that team, et cetera, as well.
Well, you walk up and he would take some off himself and put it on.
Totally. Like, if you didn't have jewelry on, and he was actually I remember one of my first meetings at Avon, and it was a big conference room. And he went around and he was like, he made everybody say how many Avon products they had used so far that day. And, and it was really an interesting moment, because he then was deciding, based on, were you a consumer and a user, even though you're part of the organization, how much cred your story had. Hey, the
Sorry.
babies are in. Hi, sweetie. Like that sort of, he understood how engaged you were in the business and in the representative experience based on how many products you had used that day. And I, after that, I was like, I'm like loading up everything. I think I was a week in at the time, and I was like, I got to go to the store and load myself up. Yeah.
That was such a good, like I remember him doing that with the jewelry all these years later. That was such a good idea.
Yeah.
And a lot of the representatives still talk about him.
Yeah.
That's why I wondered if you knew him too. It's funny though, because like Molly and Teresa, the ones I hang around with now, I've been in longer than they have, so they don't remember him. I hate it when I know something they don't remember. It makes me feel old. But I was a wee child. Right?
You were, as were all of us. It's okay, right? Yeah.
So I've got the most uncomfortable question I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
Everybody dared me to ask you. Okay, now I'm saying this in a fun way.
Okay.
Was the peacock your idea?
Oh, the peacock fragrance?
Yes.
The peacock fragrance was not my idea, actually.
Oh.
That was, those of you who know Ray Morrow from the fragrance team, but he and LG headquarters actually talked about, it's our anniversary. What should we do? And I will completely admit that I was in a couple of meetings where they were talking about how much this was going to cost. And I was like, this is crazy, and then in my head, I kept thinking, you know what? It reminded me of that Neiman Marcus Christmas catalog, and they would always have like that back cover thing that was like you could buy $150,000 helicopter or
okay.
whatever.
Yeah.
So to me, it was like that. Okay, it's that crazy, extraordinary thing that makes people talk and go, what? No, really? Ooh, right? Like I think it's an interesting story, and I think in direct sales, you need a story to engage.
No, and it did turn out the way they wanted, as far as it's got a huge value. You're able to give it to as incentives and stuff too.
Yep.
And it was in a lot of media and stuff. I just want to admit that when you walked out with it at the convention and I was watching live stream, I said, oh, and I don't want to tell you this story and for me to get in trouble, but
it's all right. Don't worry.
He walked out and I'm like, oh, that's perfect. Because that looked so retro, like one of the older bottles. And I'm like, oh man. And then I was doing like I do if I watch the Shopping Network. I'm like, you know what? If that's $24.95, I'm in. And, and then when you kept talking though, I'm thinking, oh, it's got to be more than that because he's talking too much for it to be $24.95. So then I'm like, you know what? Even if it's $34.95, I'm in all day long. And then when you at the convention, you actually came out with it at $1,500. It came down when it went in the book. Do you remember that, or am I losing it?
I don't remember that, but it's entirely possible. Things happen.
But anyway, when you said that,
yeah,
I felt stupid, but
no, and
it was funny.
I mean, that's what it's supposed to do, right? It's supposed
shock and awe,
spark conversation. I mean, how many of you out there, when you shared that catalog with your customers and they were like, is this a misprint? Is this really $1,200? And you're like, it's custom designed. It's using some of the most expensive ingredients in the world. It's, gold plated, Swarovski crystal.
Well, and there's very few things that I've gotten as awards that people wanted to touch.
There you go.
But that one, everybody's like,
it's our Oscar. Yeah, it's our Academy Award. I love it.
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, it's just everybody's been wanting to know who came up with that. That's why I wanted to know. It was you.
Definitely a collaboration. And I will admit, I was originally a skeptic, but I embraced it as I started to think about, what it could mean and what the story could be. Before I was at Avon, I worked at QVC for 6 years. And, that's where
I didn't see that in LinkedIn. I did
right.
not
So
see that
that's
in
where,
LinkedIn.
well, and So I worked for a company called Susan Graver Sportswear. So if anybody's a QVC watcher, I worked on product development for Susan Graver, but everything we sold to QVC. And I was there a couple of times a week for 6 years. I was living in New York, but travel back and forth. But that's honestly where I learned about telling a story. And if you couldn't talk about something for 10 minutes, then did you need to have the product? Or like, how do you build that conversation? And it served me incredibly well as part of Avon, because again, that dialogue engages customers and can help you close that sale.
Well, even when you first came out, you were doing the fashion and you were doing like capsules of things, and it even had matching like homeware pieces to it or something. There was a whole thing to it together. Yeah, I can see that. That's awesome. Did you get to do on air there at QVC?
I didn't actually, but it was funny.
I'm surprised.
Well, and that's why, like even now I was like, oh my gosh, you never think your life is going to become what your life becomes. But when I worked at QVC, I was actually one of the people who would talk in the earpiece of the people on air. Wow. So I had computer screens where I was watching inventory and I would see call volume at the call center. And, I would say stuff like, okay, the story that you're telling, they're like, they're buying, the calls are filling up. I'm like, but now we need to slow down because now everybody's on with an operator and people are on hold. So you need to pull back a little bit to let the transactions happen. Or, it's like, nobody cares about what you're saying, change your story or move on or take a call or, that kind of thing. And it was
move on.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty neat. You did an excellent job at the convention when you were doing the game show.
Oh my God.
That picture of you midair is my favorite picture ever. Somehow somebody caught that and you were just in the air.
It was you know what? First of all, when we rehearsed this, everything was fine.
Oh,
nothing fell out. Nothing.
Oh, the front thing. That's right. I forgot about that.
Right. It was all good. And then, it was funny. Like during it, I was just like, oh my God. And I was literally sweating underneath my jacket because I was, and
because it was going wrong.
To be fun, right? But I loved how the entire audience, when that first bracelet was won, like the entire audience jumped for joy. Like I jumped up. People at home were screaming. Like it was just so exciting. Yeah. I mean, we bought the bracelet. I wanted to give it away,
Right. No, that was awesome. That was fun. That was fun. I like it when they do fun stuff like that. And I liked the gold painted cats that were hid around. I didn't know about it, but
right.
Right. You know what the problem here is? I hadn't traveled anywhere in a year, and then you take me to a nice fun place where that has the pool thing with the Raging River thing.
Oh my, yeah.
And
I like that you call it the Raging River because we kept calling it the Lazy River and people were not so lazy. Yeah.
No, you get sucked around. You had to work hard to get out of that thing. It was awesome. Right. There wasn't a lot of chit-chatting in that. You had to pull yourself to the side. Yeah. And that was awesome. You couldn't drink while you were in there, though. That was a no.
Please don't do that. Yeah.
Right. It would. No, that was. I would go there again. That was awesome.
Those Gaylord properties, I think, are really nice. I think we've had, some good luck. Nashville felt.
Oh, the Nashville convention was awesome.
Yeah.
Did you know I was in the Dolly Parton suite? Yeah,
I am so jealous.
The spiral staircase to upstairs, it was awesome.
Oh my God, so exciting.
Yeah, the only thing weird about I'm a hotel fanatic. I love the big rooms. I love the fancy stuff.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I paid more. This is crazy. I paid more for the biggest suite on Royal Caribbean's biggest ship for a week than I paid for my little car.
Oh my God. Yeah, but you know what? It's an experience.
Oh yes, it was a two-story suite. It has a piano in it. I'll remember that my whole life. And
Exactly.
the level of butt kissing is, and I love that. Yeah, I love that.
We all like a little bit, you know, we all deserve that now and again. Hmm.
Yes, I love that. Yeah. Yeah, and on an Avon one, that one was really memorable because of the spiral staircase.
Uh,
The weird thing is most of those big giant suites only have um, one king bed. You can't get one with two beds.
that's
And
true.
I'm usually not traveling with someone I'm married to because I'm not married. So we
Right.
have to do the pillow fort between us.
Okay. Well, this is, I will say, like having now started working in events and been on lots of hotel tours as we plan conventions, et cetera, it always fascinates me that the presidential suite has like one king size bed, but a dining table that seats 10.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, like a full kitchen, or it's got 3 bathrooms, right? And I'm like, I, you know, and I'm often like, is there another room that's attached that you can open? And some of them
Yes.
have like another bedroom that you
Or
can
some
link
of them
to
have the
it.
pull down. What are those called? Murphy beds, some of
Yeah, like
them.
a little Murphy bed. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't
Yeah,
want
that
to
is
sleep.
weird.
Yeah, it's just, I find it bizarre. But it's, I mean, to your point, it's nice if you're a couple or, you know, but we'll see. It just fascinates me. I'm like, who's coming to dinner if there's only 2 of you in this room? Yeah.
So my absolute favorite room that I ever had on an Avon experience, by the way, do you want to guess or you don't have any idea?
Ooh, a favorite room on an Avon experience. You're intriguing me with the word experience because that makes it sound like
Yeah,
it maybe wasn't a trip, but maybe
it
was
was a convention, but for some reason the Platinum's got suites.
okay. Where was
Um,
this?
Las
Las
Vegas,
Vegas? Okay, yeah, it's got to
the
be Las
MGM.
Vegas.
Yeah, we were at the MGM Grand and it was the Skyloft suites.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. Yeah, and funny thing happened. To tip the staff, you have like a staff that's just your room.
Yep.
They wanted cash, and Scott was the president guy, right?
Hmm.
So I went out and I didn't have enough cash with me to tip all of my
Your
people in
peeps,
the
right?
room.
Uh-huh.
There were two liveried butlers that did breakfast and stuff. So when I went out to the desk and I said there must be a way I can get some cash, right? And
Hmm.
they don't like you to do that for some reason because they don't want you going gambling with that much or
I
something.
was
I
gonna
don't
say,
know
I
what the
wonder in a
deal was.
casino. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Right. So they did give me what I needed, but they made me sit there and count it. So I'm sitting there at the desk in this thing counting out money, and I count like a dealer or something because I
Right.
used to work shows, so I count like that.
Okay.
And
Yep. Yep.
Scott walks in, and I'm thinking, oh my God, he probably thinks I'm gambling. And I'm like so not a gambler that I was like petrified that he thought I was gambling, and I was getting
Right.
my tip money.
And what did he was probably impressed at how quickly you were handling money. Like that's probably
He
where
probably,
he would
I don't know
appreciate
that
that.
that wouldn't surprise many people, would it
Yeah,
really? Yeah,
exactly.
I'm happy with money. We got a lot of
Right.
people listening today, by the way, that Lynn
Awesome.
Huber, Cynthia Pilkington, Debbie Norwood, Teresa Cry from California, a whole bunch
Awesome.
of people. Lisa Scola. I'm never going to call her Mullins, but it's Scola Mullins.
Oh my.
Yeah, I call all my friends from high school their maiden names too, so don't feel too bad.
Love it. Love it.
Nita Vaughn, a whole bunch of people are saying nice things in the comments if you want to
Uh,
know it. Yes, indeedy. And you know what else I want to talk about? You're into quilting,
I am. I am.
not just a
And
little into it. You're like wicked into it.
well, I mean, here's what's interesting. So, you know, quilting had always been sort of my mom's thing. And so she took it up when I was probably in middle school. And I grew up in Southern Maryland, and it was kind of like her craft, her thing. And I always liked watching it, and but never thought it was something that I would be, you know, interested in. I mean, although I never really met a craft I didn't like. And you know, after she had passed away and, you know, a few years had gone by and I was still enjoying the quilts that I had seen her make and, you know, different family members had them. And then my friends started having kids. And, you know, I love the idea of when somebody has a child that there's something homemade for,
Oh,
that's homemade. So
I get
I started making them for friends, and then it just kind of spiraled from there. And but it's really kind of, I'd say I've probably been doing it for maybe like 6 years or so. Maybe no,
wow.
longer than that,
It seems
probably
like you've
closer to
rated
nine
it because
years or
I've
so.
seen some of the pieces you've done. They're
Yeah.
fabulous.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
And it's honestly, it from a very young age. So I got, when I was 11, I got my very first sewing machine, and it was a Singer treadle machine, like in the wooden case with the pedal. And you would pump the pedal to make the machine go. And that sound always made me feel calm and relaxed. And then it gave you something to concentrate on.
Oh,
And so I loved the sound of the machine, and so now that kind of is a little bit my therapy too. Yeah.
and that's excellent thinking about when a baby's born, because come to think of it, the things that I've saved for when I get gifts from when my kid was born
Yep.
were handmade things, because a lot of people gave me clothes, but they grow out of them.
Yep.
So you don't save it. Where the blankets that somebody made, I saved this. I still have them.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's so smart. Yes,
Yeah. And
that's
it's,
awesome.
and I tend to be a bit nostalgic too. I I've become a bit of our family archivist, and my father tends to pass anything sentimental on to me. So that's kind of why I had to get a bigger house in Georgia, so that I had room to put all these things that people want to share with me. But
Well, it's
I
the
like,
1886 house, right?
it is. It was
1886
built in
house.
1886. I felt like that was an omen, had
Oh,
to come
really?
in. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And she needs a little help. She's getting some work done, but I'm here to help her. I haven't named her yet, so I will throw out
Oh,
there. I do believe in naming your home. So if anybody has
oh,
a great name, feel free. But I believe that home has a spirit, and you can change the energy. And you know, this house, when I saw it, was very burdened down with stuff and things and a history. And on the very first morning when I woke up in this house, I went and took all the drapes off the windows so that the light could come in and just kind of start to lighten it up. And we're trying to figure out her new identity, but
well, that's so nice.
it's fun.
That is neat. I haven't named mine, but I call it the house that Avon built.
Yes, yes. Now, when did you build your house? Because I seem to, you built it while I
It
was
was
at Avon,
10,
because I seem
yeah,
to
it's 10 years
remember.
ago. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was 10 years ago. Yeah, I don't want to say I'm not good at the whole marriage thing, but I'm wicked good at being single. Let's put it that way. I'm
excellent. We all
so
have
good at that.
skills. Right.
Yes. So when I released him to move on to another opportunity, and I got that because corporate always says that when someone leaves, they don't tell us what happened to them. They always say, "Oh, they moved on to another opportunity."
Perfect. Yep.
So I say that about my ex-husbands because see, that works.
I think that totally
So
makes sense.
when I when I released him to move on, I didn't want to build another house because I built one with him. So
Hmm.
my mother was living here. I said, why don't I build onto that house? Because she was living in a little 700 square foot house. And I said, I'll
Okay.
just build an addition. So I built an addition bigger than the original house.
Yeah, much
And
bigger than the original.
well, yeah, but yeah, that's what I did. But to me, it's funny that challenge you guys did lately, the now and then challenge. I just put that up there. This sounds bad. I just put that up there because you were giving free stuff randomly.
That's all right.
And I thought, hey, maybe I'll get a free bundle. But I made the post way too long. And it turns out that that is my most liked and shared post I've ever put.
Interesting.
And I even made it into a card that I'm sending out for recruits now because if it worked online, maybe it'll work as a card.
It'll totally. And honestly, like, good for you, A, for first of all, accepting the challenge. So there's a reason we give stuff away is because we want to motivate people to play along. So you did the right thing. But good for you for also noticing that that was engaging and interesting to your followers, both Avon and non-Avon people, I'm assuming, right?
Well, why I even mention it is because people were saying stuff. My first two customers that I had on Guam
Uh-huh.
actually said something in the comments. I mean that they, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? I'm friends with them, but people came out and said stuff. But what was really I thought was funny was a realtor that lives in my town that I have known. Our kids went to Taekwondo together,
Okay.
and she said, "I had no idea that you were big into that." And I'm thinking,
Interesting.
where did she think I got the money for this house?
Right.
I
Right.
thought that was pretty funny
Has
because
she
she
seen your
must.
van? Right.
Right. Well, no, she isn't the first one to tell me this either. She said
Interesting.
she thought that I had an ex-husband that had a lot of money or something, or that I got willed a lot of money. They don't think it's my money somehow. And short of
Wow.
wearing a sign, I don't know.
I,
I
I
thought I was abundantly clear about where I got my money
yeah, for sure. For sure.
No, matter of fact, I've told this one before too. I was at a Girl Scout meeting early on. This was years ago now, but
Uh-huh.
still, um, they said, "We know that you only do Avon. So if you need a couple weeks to save up for the dues to pay, we'll
Uh-huh.
let you have a couple weeks." And I said,
Interesting.
"How much could the dues possibly be?" And the dues was 75 cents.
No, it was not.
Yes.
Wow.
And then somebody else told him though, because after that, right? But I was being a brat that then after that though, because when it came time for the Christmas party, they thought I needed 75 cents, and they were going to give the kids at the Christmas party pencils from Santa. And I bought Barbies from Avon. I bought
Nice.
everyone.
Oh, I kind
I
of
bought like
remember that.
80
Yeah.
Barbies or something. Yeah, I'm like, everybody get a Barbie.
I
I'm like,
remember
75 cents.
that.
They think I need 75 cents. Everybody gets a Barbie.
Right? I'll show you, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I
Well,
was bad that way.
you know, and I think that that's one thing that for me, I always think about with Avon is it it hurts my heart when I hear, or I may see people on social media say, my friends call it my lipstick gig, or I can't make money selling Avon, or, or you can't make real money, right?
Right.
And the reality is it's a lot of work, right? I mean,
Yes. It's a
everybody
real business.
who
It
does
has
it
to be
knows
treated like a real business. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. But I wish we could show more people that here's what Avon does for me. Yours is the house that Avon built, but it might just be that Avon paid for the Girl Scout dues, or Avon, paid for the electric bill last month, or whatever it is, all of
It's
that
what you
is
put into it, though, too. I think what's hard is, especially with social media, you'll get somebody join that really didn't put in the work as
yep,
far as finding out what it takes to run a business, investing any time and money into it. And
yeah,
then they'll say you can't make money. And somebody else that doesn't know will say, oh, well, you can't make money.
believes
They're
it.
not realizing it's a business just like a bookstore or a coffee shop or
Yep.
anything else. You have to invest your time and money and educate yourself, I think.
Yep. And
So,
you have to love it too. It's I get out of bed every morning because I'm excited to see what we can do. And every time I see a story or somebody who's a representative shares on social media a success, or when, we're in person, I was so happy at convention that I was like, first of all, people actually came. Second of all, they're excited and they're sharing these stories. And, that's what does it for me. And if your business makes you feel good and makes you discover something or helps you discover something about yourself, then you're in the right place. and the rest of it will come. Just keep working.
Right. You have to. Matter of fact, there are very few things that I have that would make me be successful. I'm not the smartest. I'm not the prettiest. I'm not. I mean, I realize I'm not a troll, but I'm also. I realize where I am in the spectrum of looks. I get it. But the thing I can do is be consistent. That's up to me.
Yep.
Persistent, consistent. I can keep learning. I can keep trying to do things. I can keep after it. So over these years, I've been competing with other representatives that now are not in the business. So now I realize all I really have to do is not quit. If I stick it out, I eventually,
Right.
I eventually end up on top of the mountain if I keep after it.
If you keep after it. And that's honestly, that's a great life lesson, period. Like, not quitting is success. When you quit, when you give up, you've given up on yourself. And listen, we all do it. We get frustrated. We have the bad days. Like, nobody's perfect, but believe enough in yourself and what you're doing that not quitting is your success.
It's. I think it goes worth is worth mentioning too is that you can. Not just our company, but any company could make decisions that I don't like. In the last 40 years, of course, I've seen lots of stuff I didn't like. But to me anymore, I don't sit and think about what I do and don't like that much. I think about how am I going to adjust what I do in my business to accommodate this thing that's happening. I don't sit there and say, well, I'm not going to do anything till they change it back or whatever, because that hardly ever works out in my benefit. I've got to keep my bottom line because I'm a business owner. I've got to keep my bottom line in line. I can't wait for things to change to be different.
Well, and I think, I'll share similarly in my, 20 plus year career. I've had many bosses. I've seen several CEOs. I've seen different shifts in the business. I've been through the same things that you guys are going through from a business choice perspective. And there's a reason I'm still here. And the reason I'm still here is because I care about the business, I care about the brand, and I care about the representative's ability to earn and make a difference in her community. And every time, if something's happening that I don't agree with, I ask my questions. You have knowledge makes power. And so I'll ask my questions to understand the thinking. And then I think, what can I do to support this, but still maintain the benefit for the brand and the representative? And that's, that becomes my plan. And that's what's kept me as part of the organization. I mean, there are plenty of times Avon could have decided, you know what, we don't need Michael anymore. He does this. But they found a new opportunity for me. I've traveled places I never thought I would do. I had jobs I never thought I would have. When I was in sourcing and logistics, I was like, really? You want me to do this? But it took my creative brain to put together a process and do different things. But Avon saw the opportunity for me that I hadn't even considered. And, do I want that to be my lifelong career? No, but it makes me better at what I do now, because I had that experience. Yeah.
And I think we don't have to like every single thing coming down the pike. I don't think there's going to be any company that you could work for or with. You work for them, we work with them, that you're going to like every single thing.
Exactly.
I don't think that's right.
Yeah. So you may not like all the food on your plate, but if you're hungry, you're going to eat it all. And because you need the energy to keep going. Right.
Well, Big Al, the guy that does the training in network marketing, he says every company has problems. Just pick the company you're going to have your problems with.
No, exactly. Well, my mother used to say this about dating. She would say, everybody's got baggage. You just need to find somebody who has the kind you like. Or that you can carry. It all works. It's figure out how to make it work for you. And I'll share, and I'm sure I've shared this words of wisdom from my grandmother before. So my grandmother turned 101 in January. And she will say, expectations unfulfilled lead to disappointment. Possibilities unfulfilled lead to other possibilities. and you need to open your mind to see the new possibilities. And that I remember hearing from her when I was really young and I was upset about something. And she's like, well, why would you have expectations when you could just think this is possible? But if it doesn't happen, I'm okay because something else equally engaging will happen, you know?
That's such a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So
I,
what does your family, you have a pretty big family, right?
I have kind of a small family, but it's I have one sister. I have now two stepsisters. Coincidentally, one of my stepsisters was my best friend in kindergarten. That's a
Oh.
much longer story, but I will say when my father started dating a couple of years after my mother passed away, he asked me one night, he's like, "Oh, I'm going on a date." I'm like, "Is it anybody I know?" And he said, "Do you know, Maureen Lawson?" And I was like, "Amy Lynn Lawson's mom?" I'm like, "She was my friend in kindergarten, and I hadn't seen her in like 15, 20 years, something like that." And so it's kind of nice to have an old friend as a stepsister. But you know what? I have a family that while we're not big, we are incredibly supportive of each other and very encouraging.
Nice.
I feel like growing up, if I liked something, my family would figure out a way for me to experience it. Like,
Oh, that's so nice.
when you're a kid and it's like, I think I want to play clarinet or I want to go to gymnastics or I want to, and they would start simply, like they wouldn't go out and buy a clarinet. It was like, well, let's borrow one until we know
Yeah.
if we like it, right? So sensible choices. But we spent a lot of time together as a family, and we ate meals together as a family, and we cooked together as a family, and
Oh,
so we get to
nice.
know each other a lot. Yeah, which
I
was
just
nice.
thought, I guess I thought you had a big family because I saw a group shot picture. I only have one brother, so
Oh, yeah. So that I think was at my grandmother's 100th birthday. And so that was
yeah.
like the cousins from California and
Oh,
all of
okay.
that.
So it's
So
cousins. I thought maybe it
yeah,
was brothers and sisters.
yeah, no, we're not. Listen, one sister is enough. She's
Oh.
phenomenal. I call her the smart one. So when we were in school, because she was 2 years older, I would go to a class and they would say, "Oh, you're Wendy Sengstack's brother," and I would be like, "She's the smart one. I'm the fun one. So we're gonna have a good time in this class, but don't think that I'm gonna be the same as her."
So does your
And
family know what a big job you have at Avon?
so it's very funny. I think my father wrote a Christmas letter one time to send to his friends to like update on what was going on. And I got it in the mail and I was like, this is not exactly what I do, but okay. But it's fun. Listen, I think my father is excited that I work someplace that I love with people that I really enjoy. And if I'm happy, he's happy. And it's kind of fun. Like my father was a state prosecuting attorney for 28 years. So
Wow.
he's
Oh,
a bit,
that's a whole different thing.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
he's
all
totally
very serious.
serious
Yeah.
and very smart. But since he's retired, I've learned a whole other side of him. And we actually have a much more fun relationship since he's retired because
Oh,
I now see him less as this, attorney authority and more of like a cool guy who's a little bit
oh,
dorky
that's
like
nice.
me and a little, likes to laugh. So yeah.
My family thought I was leading my mother astray when I when I signed her up to sew with me. But then what happened? Sorry, that's the dog with the
That's all
dog.
right.
What, what happened is I think this was like '98. This was a long while back. Is my brother went down to work that convention with me, and I had a reception that I put on myself. It
Uh-huh.
was like a hospitality room, I think is what I called it. And he worked the popcorn machine. After that, he was all in. He said, I had no idea you knew that many people. That's what he said.
See? Yeah.
After that, he was like all in excited. I think it takes something like that for your family to see how big the whole thing is, you know,
Something
how big.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think, you know, my stepmother is actually on social media, so, like, after
Ooh.
convention, she'll kind of share, like, "What was that? What were you doing? Like, what was that?" And
Oh, she
so,
saw
yeah.
the air jump.
Exactly. She did see the air jump. She did see the air jump. So,
You
but
need a
yeah,
picture of
it's
the air jump. That's what you need, is a picture of the air jump to put on.
I think I might need that. It's time to update my profile with the air jump, I think. That
Yeah,
you
because
might be
that's
onto it,
awesome.
Lisa.
That is the awesomest thing ever.
Now, I
Well,
don't even know, do we know who took that shot? I don't even know if I know where it came from.
I don't know. I grabbed it off of somebody else, so I
Okay.
didn't take it. I know that. I
All
like to
right.
sit in the back of the room,
Smart, smart.
which is, well, yeah, that's what, yeah, I'm bad about that. Anyway, thank you so much. I have one last question.
Yes.
Everybody that comes on, my special guests, get to choose whether they'd like brownies, cookies, or sea salt caramels.
Sea salt caramels. Come on.
Oh, that's my new favorite. Yeah. Oh,
Mix the
I was
sweet and
hoping you'd pick
savory.
that.
I'm into it.
I,
Yeah.
so I will have some sea salt caramels on the way to you, Michael, and this
Oh,
will
you're
be
the
up on
best.
YouTube. And you have some big shoes to fill, because the guest that has the most views so far has been Angie Rossi.
I was gonna say it's got to be Angie. Like,
That
yeah,
was Angie. I thought it
awesome.
might be John Fleming, and they're not that close, which
Okay.
would make John very unhappy, because him and Angie have a like
I
thing.
was gonna say don't tell John that,
No,
but yeah,
no, I'm not. I'm not going to.
love it, love
But,
it.
well, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you guys. Thanks for being with us and listening. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for including me.
So I will turn off the recording, and I'll see you in a moment.
Perfect. You got it. Bye,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.